Welcome to Turning Hard Times to Good Times. I'm your host, Jay Taylor, and I'm really pleased to have Kerry Landis with me. He is the nuclear engineer that you've heard me talk about before. He is the person who guided me, told me about Hydrograph clean power. So you've heard with, I think, discussions with Kjirstin Breure and others that Kerry Landis played a role in introducing this very exciting story to me. And he agreed to come on and talk a little bit about his experience and what led him to Hydrograph Clean Power. Kerry, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure, Jay.
I'd like to start out by asking you, maybe share your professional path. How did you become a nuclear engineer?
Sure. Yeah, I'd like to go a little bit of more detail than I normally would, just because it lays the foundation of
Mhm.
why hydrograph, I recognize it early in hydrograph's history.
Mhm.
And that began, I graduated as a chemist in university and was actually heading on my way to go for a doctorate in analytical chemistry. And the military had more plans for me, different from my own. So I got a draft notice in hand.
This was during
And
Vietnam, perhaps?
during Vietnam
Yeah.
time frame, that's correct. And so so I enlisted in the Navy
Mm.
and was a Navy electronics technician for a couple of years and got a lot of good training there. Then became a nuclear submarine officer
Mhm.
and spent 8 years as a nuclear submarine officer. Then 12 years as a NATO intelligence command officer.
Mhm. Mhm.
So at the end of that time frame, I retired and retired as a Navy commander.
Mm.
When I left the Navy after the 10 years of active duty, I went to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And there I spent 26 years in virtually every management position that they had. But the unique thing there is I was trained as a root cause analyst, as an inspector, as a safety culture analyst, and as a probabilistic risk analyst.
Oh,
So those are kind of unique features to be able to analyze problems in nuclear facilities, how to uh, how to develop an improvement plan, and how to oversee the execution of that improvement plan. Also, the tail end of that, well, I retired after 26 years. Then I began and formed my own consulting company, doing pretty much the same thing, where I analyze and give recommendations to nuclear power plants about how to improve.
mhm.
And as a result, they asked me to be on many nuclear oversight boards. I've been on 5 of those. I was chairman of one of them.
Mhm.
And an oversight board does just what it says. We review, identify areas of weakness, help them develop a plan for improving that, and then give some executive oversight to that.
Mhm.
So that's pretty much the background that allowed me to, from chemistry, engineering, risk analysis, to physics, to actually be ready to see what hydrograph could do.
Yeah, maybe you could help us understand a little bit more about that. So you're a risk analyst. You're obviously you're involved with materials as
Right.
engineering, and you know,
That
uh,
is correct.
So what is there in graphene, especially the sort of pure, really pure graphene that's
Okay.
produced by hydrograph? That
Yeah.
does that Can you relate that to the nuclear industry possibly as a way, as a
Not
material,
not yeah, not so
that
much
might be useful?
not so much directly to the nuclear industry in terms of its use,
Hmm.
but the skills that were necessary to analyze the nuclear industry were the same skills uh, that I needed to be able to analyze graphene. And especially most people don't recognize, but nuclear engineers have to be conversant in chemistry, electronics, physics, operational analysis, safety analysis, cultural analysis, everything.
Hmm.
So it allowed me not only to see what graphene, because of my chemistry background,
Right.
but also to see how a company could take that and then develop it into something that could be very profitable.
Very profitable. I mean, what is sort of perplexing is that it seems to have potential for so many different kinds of industries.
Right, right.
Um, so so I guess, so on your own, you kind of, with this background that you had, this intellectual, this professional background that you had,
Mhm.
sort of led you to, I mean, did you learn about, I mean, did you think about graphene before you knew about hydrograph?
Yes, as a matter of fact, graphene was Kjirstin, the CEO, Kjirstin Breure, talks about it being discovered in 2014. But
Hmm.
I'm going to take it back a little bit further. Back in there was a physicist that identified it by the name of Wallace. He theorized that
Uh-huh.
that this structure would be out there, which is a monoatomic layer honeycomb structure of what's called sp2 bonded
Right.
benzene ring.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so my chemistry allowed me to see that, understand it. In 1962, a chemist by the name of Boehm
Hmm.
actually isolated it in chemistry. And my chemistry background, analytical chemistry, was in the late 60s, early 70s. So I knew about that research
Uh-huh.
and was, like I said, I was getting ready to go for a PhD and then got diverted. But so I knew about graphene. However, it had never been isolated and characterized as to its tremendous ability
Hmm.
until the two physicists did it at the University of Manchester.
Uh-huh.
And they subsequently got the Nobel Prize for that in 2010.
Ah.
And then not much was, it was characterized, but there wasn't really a a lot of product there. Its functional use in business really wasn't uh, possible
Hmm.
because there wasn't a good high purity
Hmm.
uh, product out there. And then, my hat's off to Dr. Sorensen, who
Right.
actually did an experiment, didn't do what he wanted it to do, but then he looked at the byproduct of that experiment. And in 2014, he, of course, identified a method of mass production of graphene. So now it's available. Now it's really available in pure form in the industry. So and I honestly, I think that Dr. Sorensen, as time goes on here and we see the capability of graphene in all the various attributes that it has, I wouldn't be surprised if Dr. Sorensen gets nominated for the Nobel Prize.
Wow.
It's that significant. He made a discovery that hands down will change, can easily change many avenues of life in the future.
Wow. So you sort of watched this development of graphene, I guess, from its first conceptual,
Yep.
hypothetical, or I guess theoretical.
I wasn't there in 1947, but I did read about it.
Yeah. Well, you weren't there, but you were, no, I guess, well, you and I are about the same age. So
Mhm.
1947 was about the year of my origin on Earth. So
Yeah, yeah. Born in 50,
yeah.
but in chemistry, I did read about it and understand it. So
So it must have been exciting to you to watch this. And I guess that's really what then led you to Hydrograph. How did you hear about Hydrograph? How did you find out about the, it's a tiny little company. Still is.
yes, yes. I began looking for after I recognized all of the characteristics. So I kind of highlighted the chemistry, and then in electronics, I knew that graphene had greater conductivity, electronic
Uh-huh.
and thermal conductivity. And then I understood from my engineering background that it had higher tensile strength, it had greater hardness, it had impermeability. In fact, uh, a vessel with that coating even small hydrogen atoms won't pass through it.
Hmm.
So it has all kinds of advantages. And in my military background, military is always pushing the limits of material use to try to
Hmm.
get a military advantage. So I knew that it was being looked at in that regard. So with all that background, I began looking for graphene companies.
Hmm.
And, and the real issue there is purity. That was problematic. There has been some independent analysis on graphene that companies that say they produce it, and most of them are less than 10% graphene really mixed with graphite.
Hmm.
So that doesn't have the same characteristics that pure graphene does. So that led me, so all of a sudden back in 2021, 2020, 2021, I happened upon Hydrograph Clean Power as I was looking.
Hmm.
And they said that they produced a 99.8% pure graphene. That's never been heard of. I know there's no other company in the world that does that. And so I really started looking into a deep dive of that.
Hmm.
And like I said, it didn't take long for me to recognize that Hydrograph Clean Power is very unique in what it can provide to multiple industries in the future.
So 2021, so we're looking at four years or so ago. Was it a public company when you first invested? It was
No, it didn't
private.
become public until, in fact, that was the fortunate part as an investor. I was looking at, it wasn't quite public yet.
Mhm.
And so it became public in either, I think, very late 2021.
Mhm.
And I began investing in it the first thing in 2022. And so, yeah, for 4 years, I've been looking at it, especially focusing on um, uh, we had talked about uh, it wasn't really strongly on my radar screen because I thought they had a business model that was wrong.
Mhm.
And their business model prior to Kjirstin Breure taking over as CEO in March of 2024,
Uh-huh.
the business model before that was to send these units out. They call them Hyperion units that
Mhm.
produce the graphene.
Mhm.
They were going to license them and send them out.
Oh,
Now, my physics and engineering background and risk background tells me that was not a good plan.
dangerous.
Very dangerous. It is a very high temperature, very high pressure explosion that goes on, and it's an exothermic reaction. So you spark it and it takes off. And if you don't have technicians that really know what they're doing and under tight control of technicians that do or engineers that do, then you've got a very high risk potential.
Mhm.
And companies don't like that. And
Mhm.
I didn't like it as an investor. So when Kjirstin took over, she stated that they totally changed their strategy to centralize production of the Hyperion units, and then they would just sell the graphene out to end users. In fact, because they've got such a group of uh, you know, chemists, PhD, physicists, PhDs, engineers. They've got such a highly technical um, knowledge worthy individuals that they can produce graphene with other atomic layers and coatings
Yes.
and combinations to meet the specific need of end users.
Yeah.
Uh, so,
Yeah.
so it became that whole transition to a centralized production modification to meet the end user need and keeping tight control of it. That opened it up to me to be what I believe is the potential growth that it has today.
Right. So you're quite confident in the professionalism, the scientific
Very
engineering
so.
um, And so, yeah, I mean, Kjirstin has talked about this layering effect where they can layer
That's
different
correct.
and design. This is essentially this is a technology company as much as a
It,
materials
it,
company, isn't it?
it is. In fact, later on, we're going to talk about the PE ratio. I'm going to do some calculations to try to help um, put solid numbers on what the growth potential is. And I'm going to use a PE of 10, which may be more appropriate for mining companies,
Yeah,
but technology companies can go way beyond that.
for
So,
sure, we're seeing it. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So this is really exciting. So, what sort of, I mean, diverse industries? I mean, Kjirstin has talked about the various industries, but it's almost mind-boggling. And then the
It
amounts
is.
of graphene that she's talking about that some of these large companies that they're talking to
Hmm.
are likely going to need. And then the scaling up is one of the issues that she's been very concerned about.
That's correct.
But what are your thoughts about what kind of industries might be able to use graphene? We know that there's
Okay.
some like cement, for example, a small amount
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
graphene in cement can reduce the amount of cement that's required, but for the same strength, the same whatever properties are
Right.
required. However, it's not a high margin business, as I understand it, as much as some of the others would be
Right.
for
Right.
Hydrograph. But what are your thoughts in terms of the kinds of industries that this might apply to?
Okay. So let me recap just for a moment. So it's stronger than steel, graphene is.
Hmm?
It has a high tensile strength. It's harder than a diamond. It has the highest thermal conductivity of anything measured. It has high electron conductivity, low resistance, better than copper. It's transparent. One thin layer passes 97.7% of the light.
Huh.
The eye can barely see one thin layer, but you can. It reduces it slightly. It's impermeable,
Uh-huh.
so it can hold gases. It's the thinnest two-dimensional layer known to man, and it has many other properties too. So what kind of industries? The energy storage industry,
Yeah.
batteries and capacitors. It it reduces the charging time requirement for batteries and capacitors. It provides extended life to the batteries and the capacitor. Composites, so epoxies, composites. It increases the conductivity, the strength, the abrasion resistance, the UV
Mhm.
resistance.
Huh.
Coatings, durability is increased. It's lightweight. It's anti-corrosive. It provides electromagnetic shielding, uh, anti-fouling. In fact, in most industries, including nuclear industry,
Mhm.
the piping that runs around through the plant
Mhm.
is stainless steel or carbon steel piping. One of the biggest difficulties over years is the fouling of that piping. If you put an internal coating layer on it, that that will extend the life of that piping, and it doesn't have to be a very thick layer at all with graphene. It can
Mhm.
be actually very thin and very strong with
Uh-huh.
graphene.
Oh,
So there's
endless.
lubricants. Lubricants, it reduces the wear from if just add a little bit to the
Mhm.
lubricants.
Wow.
Synthetic lubricants, it reduces wear by 80%. That increases and a lot of this can be found, by the way, on the website, but
Mhm.
uh, it allows a rotating machinery to last 24 times longer than it normally would.
Mm.
And they stopped at 24 because it hadn't failed in the tests that they were running. So I'm not sure how much longer it would go. Uh, Lubricants, like I said, just a very small quantity. NASCAR is looking at it because think about if they can get just a minor few percent improvement in the reduced friction in high performance engines, but it
Mm.
actually reduces it dramatically by 80%.
Mm.
So concrete you mentioned. concrete has rebar in it. So you can, if you add a little bit of graphene, it reduces the thing that messes up concrete is it's a hydrated molecule.
Right.
And it expands and contracts, and that can form um, cracking and spalling.
Mm-hmm.
If with graphene, you can reduce the amount of concrete that's needed. It reduces the porosity, so there's not as much water that can penetrate it and saturate it.
Mm-hmm.
And rebar that's in it will keep it strong, which is, big iron rods, will keep it strong as long as the iron is not corroded. So
Mm-hmm.
the graphene helps reduce the corrosion. So it extends the life of concrete, and you get the same strength with a reduced volume of concrete used.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Military defense industry, I've already talked about. They keep pushing the limits, and they don't really want to talk to us and tell us what they're doing. But
No.
graphene allows them to push those limits.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
biomedical diagnostics
yeah, I
that
was going to
are
say,
looking
Kjirstin has
at it.
talked about that, being
Yeah,
able to detect early detection of cancer, for example.
that's correct. And
Incredible.
my electronics background, uh, semiconductors, of course, silicon semiconductors, transistors, integrated circuits are obviously they have almost reached their limit of speed and size and reduced size.
Mm-hmm.
Graphene was actually produced, a graphene semiconductor was produced early 2024 here in Atlanta. I'm in Marietta, north of Atlanta,
Uh-huh.
and the Georgia Institute of Technology actually produced that,
Is
some
that
of the
right?
physicists there.
Yeah.
So that's been less than a year and a half ago, and they're now doing research. Quantum computing needs orders of magnitude greater speed.
Yes.
And there's some promising developments that graphene could be the semiconductor that gives them that speed.
I mean, there's so much talk now, of course, about AI and the amount of
Right.
energy that's going to be required.
Right.
Might that help speed things up or
Absolutely. And not only will it help provide the speed necessary for quantum computing, but it has reduced resistance,
Hmm.
so it doesn't throw off as much heat.
Uh-huh.
And it has greater thermal conductivity, which means you can take that heat away a lot faster and easier.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't require as much power to keep it cool.
Mm-hmm. I think
So
you
that's kind of that's the broad, there's fields
yeah.
that we haven't even looked at yet.
Yeah. Well, and Kjirstin talks about, I forget how many, every time I talk to her, there's more companies, but I mean, that seems to be maybe one issue in terms there's so many things for them to look at and to decide and to work towards. So they do have to limit their focus right now. I know
Yeah.
in
You
terms
know,
of
you highlight the execution of the
Mhm.
company's business plan is going to be really dependent upon their ability to prioritize the highest growth and profit potential companies first.
Right, right. Yeah, I think you've answered the issue of why Hydrograph Clean Power, as opposed to other companies that are in the graphene business, they simply lack the purity that this one has. And of course, then there are some applications commercially. I think a friend of mine is talking about some battery usage for some graphene
Hmm.
company, but
That's
they're not producing the kind of purity that I think is being
right.
produced here. Um,
There's actually a couple more, you highlight, there's
uh-huh.
a couple more issues relative to why graphene other than other companies. Purity is the key issue. But if their purity comes at a cost from an investor analyst perspective,
Hmm.
if it comes at a very high cost, that doesn't give you any benefit.
Right.
It has so as I started looking at it, it has low capex,
Hmm.
it has low operating cost. Hydrograph has high margins, and um, it looks like it's going to have high demand based upon the interest. 65 companies currently, with more being added each week. And it has the, as you highlighted, the competitive advantage of being the only company that produces 99.8% pure graphene, and it's patented. It's a proprietary process.
Yeah, it's patented. I don't know how much the Chinese might respect the patent.
Right,
That's another
right,
issue.
exactly.
Um,
Yeah, I
um,
agree with that.
yeah, certainly something I'm sure the company is aware of.
Right.
Well, so you touched on the economics, Kerry. Just maybe go over that. I know Kjirstin has talked about it. I know they're looking at a larger unit right now. I think they can
Mhm.
produce instead of 10, was it 10 tons a year, they can do
Right. 10 tons.
25 now, and the capex
Right.
a little bit larger, but not all that much larger. She's talking about 70% operating margins.
Right.
Companies that are going to need hundreds, if not thousands
Of tons per year.
yeah.
So,
It's just mind-boggling, and the capex, I think, yeah, I mean, I don't remember the numbers exactly, but it's very minuscule compared to the revenues. And
yeah, in fact, I'll go
especially
over
doing
those numbers here a little bit
it. Mhm.
with you. So, um, as I started going over these numbers, this is what really I knew it was going to have a growth potential, but anything with 70% growth margins, as long as there's demand for it, you're going to make a lot of money. So I started taking a look at what was the price of uh, to the customer. The price is she's able to charge is 250,000 on the low end
Per ton.
per ton to $800,000 on the high end for a very specialized function graphene
Mhm.
combined with other
Yep. Yeah,
elements.
those would be the ones with the layers that are
Exactly.
specifically tailored to the need of the
Exactly.
industry. Yeah.
Exactly. And they've got the technical, they've got uh, the academic expertise to be able to develop that. So
And of course, they're working with the University of Manchester too, I think. So there's
that's correct.
scientists there as well. So,
That's correct. They are.
mhm.
And they're talking about developing uh, the uh, the graphene engineering innovation center, geek, in
Yes,
University of Manchester in England. They're talking about developing one here in the United States
exactly.
also.
Exactly. I think it would be devoted pretty much to the military, though.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And
So,
but it would be, it looks like it would be really centered around hydrograph.
mhm.
That's my guess, but time will tell on that.
Yeah.
So with that price, so let's talk about some of the specifics. Um, so developing a Hyperion unit, the 10-ton unit
Mhm.
costs about $300,000 to build.
Mhm.
The 25-ton unit costs about 500 plus maybe 600,000 to build that.
Mhm.
Um, it's easily scalable. All you do is you build more units as the demand comes. So that's a real plus. They have purchase orders anticipated for the rest of 2025. They should. You'll see with the numbers I'm going to come up with here. They'll almost reach profitability with any order of any size. 100 tons would make them profitable almost immediately.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. So we mentioned with 65 customers, potential customers, none yet that they've signed the contract for. So that's going to be the big if.
Mhm.
Um, so customer orders, also out of that 65, about 5 to 7 of them are large customers requiring hundreds of tons of graphene per year.
Mhm.
One, possibly two customers would require thousands of tons per year.
Mhm.
So I'll lay that aside for a minute.
Yeah.
So today their market cap as of last night was $46.9 million
US money.
US, right? That leaves a huge upside potential.
Right.
Um, with strategically centralized production, they're going to develop a plant in Texas. That was another factor, by the way, that drew me to say, okay, I need to go invest more in this, because they didn't really have their location right now at Kansas State University. They need cylinders of acetylene and oxygen to be transported to them. Again, high risk.
Yeah.
There's always a vulnerability there. So moving to Texas allows them to get a contract agreement that so the acetylene and the oxygen can be piped directly to their facility, no transportation requirements. And with proper engineering, you can reduce the probability of a accident occurring even with the pipeline, with proper valving and shutoff capability. And I'll be looking at that aspect of this company as they
Sure.
develop their plans. So that's the basics of the cost. So if you want, I'll go directly into a specific example.
Yeah, why not? Let's
Okay.
just make it easy for people to
Okay.
conceptualize.
So exactly. An estimated cost to produce a kilo is about $50. I'm going to use rounded numbers here just to make the math easy.
Yeah.
And graphene sells for $250 per kilo. So a metric ton would be $250,000. So I'm using the low end of that range,
Right,
250 to 800,000. So the margin is about $200 per ton. That's an 80% margin. It could be a little less. There's some factors also in here that we're not including, which is, and I'll mention it here, but I won't add it in the calculation, is the byproduct is syngas, which is a mixture of carbon monoxide and hydrogen. And they can sell that as an offtake. There's no waste produced. The only byproduct is this syngas, which is marketable, and that could increase their margins. And that's not included in this calculation. So with 250 is it costs to produce it.
Yep.
250 to sell it. That gives you a $200 per kilo or $200,000 per metric ton margin for profit. And that is from $5 million for the Hyperion units.
Which can produce 25 tons.
Yeah, 25 metric tons. So currently they're going to operate, they plan to operate with the 25 ton. That's their plan to go to that. They're currently operating with the 10 ton that they had developed previously. So they do have some graphene inventory.
Sure.
So when they start using the 25 ton units, now I'm going to project that between now for the next 17 months, so by the end of 2026, let's say they develop 25 of those units. So 25 of the 25 ton units. And that's really very reasonable. With 65 potential customers, it's reasonable that their demand would be in the hundreds of tons. The CEO, like I said, anticipates getting some orders here at the end of 2025 and many more in 2026. So if we start with 25, here's the math. If we start with 25 Hyperion units, by the end of 2026, that's 625 tons of production. The CapEx is 25 units times $500,000 per unit, which is $12.5 million. And remember, that's for a 10-year life. So that's $1.25 million in a straight amortization over the 10-year life. So that's
Yeah.
that CapEx is minuscule
Yeah.
compared to what you and I see in the mining
Oh, for
industry.
goodness, yeah.
You know, 300
Manufacturing.
million is very commonplace in the mining industry. So this is 12.5 million. And that 25 units produces 25 tons
Hmm.
per year
Hmm.
each,
So,
and times $200,000 earning per ton is $125 million per year.
yeah.
If we use a PE of 10, then that's very conservative, as we mentioned, for this, hybrid of material and technology. It's kind of a hybrid company. That gives you a capex of $1.25 billion.
Hmm. Just on
A-
this.
And with approximately, now I'm using the fully diluted shares. Today they have outstanding 256, but fully diluted, it's just shy of 350 million shares. So if I use the fully diluted, divide that into the 1.25 billion, you get a share price of $3.57.
Hmm.
At today's price of Hydrograph, which was slightly yesterday, it closed at below 18 cents.
Yeah.
That's a 20x return.
Yeah.
20.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, and I think what you're proposing here is pretty, from what I understand, at least for
pretty reasonable.
has been reasonable, yeah, and a
Mhm.
multiple of and a PE of 10 is, as you say, more for industrial companies or mining companies, companies that are not high tech but are just producing commodities essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let me take it one step further just to really blow people's minds here. uh, that's 625 tons of demand.
Yeah.
Remember, she said that there are one or two, there are 5 to 7 that want hundreds, and one or two that may want thousands of tons per year. So let's say we get one customer wanting 2,000 tons or two with 1,000 tons per year.
Hmm.
That would require 125, 5 times more. So all that does is quintuple every one of the numbers I just gave.
Yeah.
So when I quintuple it, that's 125 Hyperion units.
Hmm.
That's a capex of 62.5 million, which is
Right.
still super low.
Yeah.
It's an earnings of $625 million. That would be a market cap with the PE of 10 of 6.25 billion. And that would be a share price at the diluted shares of $17.85,
Mhm.
which is almost a 100x from today's price.
From today's price, right? Well, of
So,
course, these seem to be possible numbers. We know life is always
right.
there's always issues that come up. What could go wrong with your investment thesis?
Okay.
What
So,
are what are some of the things we should be aware of that might make this sort of almost pie in the sky thing not happen?
exactly. So as is always the case, and that's a great question to ask because every investment could go astray. And you and I have seen many of them in our lifetime that
Sure.
had great promise and they went in the dirt. Uh, the one that can't really be controlled is the economy attenuates, so the demand from any industry would attenuate with it. Can't really control that, and right now I don't see that as an issue. I don't really see us heading into any big recession at all. The next is leadership fails to execute the strategic business plan.
Hmm.
So that's specifically of drawing in the demand and then scaling up to meet that demand. So leadership execution is where I've seen more companies go astray from that one than virtually anything else.
Mhm.
Now, so what's the potential for that? There are a lot of good signs um, in 2024 when Kjirstin Breure took over as CEO and they changed the business strategy. That's a great sign. That told me they were heading in the right direction. It reduced risk dramatically. Um, the realignment of the board members to prepare for NASDAQ listing,
Mhm.
that's a good thing.
Yep.
Um, they have planned to relocate, as we've mentioned, to Texas to have a large facility that's easily scalable,
Mhm.
and they're close to providers of acetylene and oxygen. The construction facility, like I said, provides an easy scale up. The I didn't mention something too. Building 25 or even to 125 units, how long does that take?
Yeah, that
Well,
was
it
a question
takes,
I had. Yeah.
yeah, 2 to 3 months to build one unit. Um, so it's not that complex, and they can be built in parallel. So you can build 2 to 10 per month if need be.
Would they
It's
be
just
building them, Kerry?
they
Or
would
would they have?
have engineering firms build them, and then the
Uh,
proprietary part of the control circuitry would be in-house as they
sure,
hook it up and test it and operate it. So
sure.
yeah, it could be built by a number of good engineering firms
Okay.
because it's not really it's not rocket science to put this Hyperion unit together. It's the control of it
Uh-huh.
that's
Yeah,
more
and
difficult.
with the input, acetylene gas and allocating so it'd have to be a central control unit somewhere, right?
Correctly. Correct. That's
Right. And then if you're
now
producing multiple different kinds of it, and if you have specialty graphenes, I mean, there's a lot to it. I know there's going to be a lot to it.
that's correct. That's the proprietary aspect of it that they've got the people and the expertise to be able to
Mhm.
run that well.
Mhm.
So the real issue that we've said
Scalability.
is uh, is the leadership failing to execute.
Yeah.
Now, so I want to make a comment on that regarding Kjirstin Breure. I've already said she's made a number of changes here that are really positive for the company. And in my 40 years of Navy, NRC experience, and now consulting experience, I evaluate um, CEOs all the time, and the executive team at all these nuclear power plants nationally and internationally. And I want to say this so people hear it. I have rarely seen a CEO with a commanding level of knowledge of advanced materials, her her knowledge of the application of those materials, her communication skills, and her strategic business acumen. For her age, she is way beyond her years in being a high proficient CEO. So every time I hear Kjirstin Breure give an interview, and she's done it a couple times with you, I go buy more Hydrograph.
Well, I think some other people are doing that too, but I should say that I had met over lunch in New York with a consultant of the company, and he said there are graphene companies. There are lots of companies out there that don't make it, but
Right.
they're going to make it. And he pointed to Kirsten, who was sitting across the
Oh
table.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to, pat her ego too
Anything.
much, but I mean, she is very, very articulate. She obviously has command of the science and the engineering and stuff. So she's
Absolutely.
very impressive. And I think, though, one of the things that impresses me, Kerry, about her is
Mhm.
her willingness to listen to others.
Absolutely.
I mean, the last thing you need is an arrogant CEO. You want somebody
Absolutely.
who's humble, who can say, well, gee, yeah, I hadn't thought of that before. That's a good idea. So the input, she's willing to listen and learn.
Absolutely.
And so that to me was a very big positive as well.
In fact, to chime on to that, also, I've talked with her a number of times and gave some recommendations that she needed to be concerned about and to watch for, and she was very receptive. She
Yeah.
took notes and her interaction with me, I knew she was listening
Yeah.
intently. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's so important. I mean, the management really is everything. Doesn't matter what kind of business you're running. If you don't have the management, it's not going to make it.
That's correct. You can destroy it as
I mean,
easily as you can build it up.
certainly I see it all the time in the mining industry, which is a complex industry. It's so complicated. Most people think it's just digging some dirt out of the ground, but it's very, very science,
Very hard, very complex.
engineering and science is it. And so, well, this is really an exciting story, I think, Kerry. What are concluding thoughts that you might just leave us with?
So concluding thoughts are, I want to make sure people understand that Hydrograph is at the moment, I believe, the board has two new members, so that's an iffy. I mean, I think I'm sure they're going to be good people. I want to watch that and see, but the real issue is we could have it could be taken over.
Mhm.
There's a potential for that.
Mhm.
Somebody else could see how great this company, its growth potential is, and try to take it over.
Mhm.
And the prior board and the CEO, Kjirstin Breure, I know were stating that they're totally against any takeover because I believe they recognize, and the two new board members, I don't know, I haven't talked with them, but I'm hoping that they have the same thoughts and the same objective to not submit to a takeover because that would cap the high level potential for this company.
Mhm.
And then just to leave people with the fact that um, this there seriously is rarely a time in life, and I've been an investor for over 4 years, as I know you have.
Mhm.
By the way, a little side note here before I make a concluding statement. Uh, I want to thank you, Jay, because I have been a 20 plus year subscriber to your newsletter and have made very good investments from your newsletter. So thank you. I wanted
I'm
to.
sure you probably had a few duds along the way too, but
Oh, there's always duds.
you
Don't
bought everything that I recommended for sure.
anybody that thinks
I
they're
should say that I had never met you before you contacted me about Hydrograph. So
right,
you'd been a
right.
listener for a number
I
of
have
years.
been a silent reader for 20 years.
Well, I'm glad you told me about this story because I think it's one of the most exciting ones I've ever covered.
It sure is. So the point I was going to leave people, your listeners, with is the fact that rarely in life are we given the opportunity to have uh, potential hundred baggers.
Yeah,
The mining industry, a lot of people don't understand, has lots of potential 2, 5, 10 baggers, and maybe a few beyond that.
yeah,
A hundred bagger is
not
very
rare.
rare.
Yeah.
I've actually had two of them in my life, and when I saw this was one that potentially had that capability, it really doesn't take, or your listeners should know that it doesn't take but a very small investment. And if it turns out to be a hundred potential hundred bagger down the road,
It can be
it'll change their
life-changing for
financial
your family.
condition
Yeah, it can
dramatically.
be very helpful to your family and your
So,
loved ones for sure. And that's what it's all about.
so
Is
my so after listening to myself again, I'm going to go buy more hydrograph.
well, I mean, yeah, I mean, it can be a feedback loop, and we don't want that, and that's why. But I think given your engineering capabilities, your history, your background, your professional background, you also have alerted us to the risks that are involved, and there always are risks. I think the takeover risk is one of the things that I think of. Why, if somebody come in, you said, you talked about a $3 stock price. Well, to people that have maybe been sitting with this for a while, $3 might sound pretty good. and yet it would be too early in my view. So
Absolutely.
I would really
Right.
hope that, and it has something to do with who owns the shares, and maybe the company will be doing something along those lines to try to get the right kind of shareholders in
Yes.
there, So, and also, if they can perfect the business model from the start and not having any big fumbles, they start to generate cash, then they should be able to self-fund. So, I mean, so many of the mining stories that I follow, it's a matter of funding, and companies have to go
Right.
begging on their knees for money. Dilution and follows, and it's not what we want to see. So, but I
Right.
think this has a chance to do really, really good for a lot of people. So,
I do
and
too.
not to mention, I mean, we're talking from the investor's point of view, society as a whole that benefits from greater
Absolutely.
productivity and efficiency and so forth, which helps humankind as well.
Absolutely right.
Kerry, I want to thank you so much for spending so much time with us, helping us understand this story from a different perspective. I've had Kjirstin on, expect to have her on frequently in the future as things progress. But you bring that third dimension and somebody who independently looked at the story from a professional point of view,
Mhm.
loved it. So I think you've been very helpful in helping our listeners and viewers understand
You're good. My pleasure, Jay.
very much better. All right. Well, that's it for this show, folks. I am expecting to talk to Michael Oliver probably, and maybe this weekend or early next week, have him on my show as well. That is it for now. Keep your eyes peeled on your inbox, on your Substack inbox for the next show after this. Until then, goodbye and God's blessings to you.